Hey guys, Dietitians of Dallas here for this week's Food for Thought. And today I want to talk about the relationship between your gut health and anxiety and depression. Now, this will be a very brief Cliff's Notes version of this topic, but it'll give you a good starting point to understand why there is such a shift and why we really need to prioritize like what we're putting into our bodies. As dietitians, we're not just focusing on weight loss, macro counting, calories in, calories out. That's a very small piece of what dietitians actually do. What we like to do is look and help you understand how the chemistry of food changes once it's in our body and what pathways it's taking and how that applies to our day-to-day life. So when we think about anxiety and depression, in general, as a society, I personally feel like that we are over-medicated. I think we over-medicate our kids too. I'm not saying that's intentional, but that's how I feel. That when I see adolescents in my practice with anxiety and depression, and when we think about how long the human race has been around, that we are made to adapt and overcome, but then we have these children on depression medications, anxiety medications, when it's like, okay, what can we actually do about that? I'm not saying they don't have that, but I definitely think there's more preventative or natural ways to treat that. So when we think about anxiety and depression, we think about an imbalance of chemicals in our brain, which it is. However, those chemicals are not actually made in the brain, they're made in your stomach. And they're transmitted to the brain through our gut-brain axis, which is just a little transmitter of how the brain and stomach kind of talk to each other. In order for the gut to get those hormones, those chemicals to the brain, we have to have a healthy gut microbiome. I'm sure this is something many of you have heard over the last few years. It's becoming more popular in functional preventative medicine because it truly is getting down to what the body needs to actually work. So when we think about the stomach is making all these hormones, all of these chemicals, it needs to be sent to the brain. Any interruption or permutation in that gut microbiome will send that stomach into a different signal. So if there are things affecting the gut microbiome, the top things are going to be inactivity, high processed food, excessive alcohol intake, lack of a probiotic can be one of them, high fat intake, kind of honestly, the typical American diet, how you would think, those can actually interrupt the gut microbiome, the health status of that. So anytime there's that permutation, that interruption in that, the stomach is not going to signal the brain any longer because it hasn't made those chemicals correctly. It signals an inflammatory response, kind of like I'm in danger, to our parasympathetic nervous system, which is our involuntary movements, but that also include behavior. So when we kind of sum up that piece of the picture where, okay, my gut microbiome isn't healthy, it's not going to send the chemicals, it's sending almost inflammatory immune response, which affects behaviors. And we have noticed that in anxiety and depression, that there's a link between GI issues, anxiety, and depression. And that's where that starts, okay? Simply the gut microbiome has been interrupted. It's not sending to the brain, it's sending to a different body system to handle this in a different manner. Now, when we apply that to day-to-day things and we think, okay, that's great, that's the science of it, what does that mean for me? Well, 90% of your serotonin, or those happy hormones, are made in your stomach. Just made there, not even accounting for like, okay, if your stomach isn't healthy enough, it's not going to send it where it needs to go. Flat out, the production will not be made. So if we have high processed foods, like I said, inactivity, excessive alcohol intake, serotonin is just not being made to begin with. Not only that, what is made is not going to be sent to the brain correctly. So that's a big piece of the puzzle where this unhealthy patterns that we're eating, all these processed foods that include chemicals, are actually affecting the way the brain and the body are signaling different body processes. A big one, again, anxiety and depression. The other piece to that is some of these weight loss medications. If you look at a medication and it says, could cause, side effect of maybe can be linked to depression, that's what they're talking about. Because if you're on a medication, I'm not going to name the very popular one now that I'm thinking of, but essentially it's advertised that it allows food to sit in your stomach longer so you feel full. That's not a good thing. We don't want food. That's paralyzing the stomach. That's what we call gastroparesis in our diabetic patients. We don't want food sitting in the stomach longer than it has to. That is affecting the gut health. When that sits in the stomach too long, again, the gut microbiome is starting to die and we aren't making those hormones to send to the brain. And so it plays into that big picture of when we think, well, I just want to see the number on the scale. You will see a number on the scale, but you are losing functional weight and you are losing your body processes along with that. So not to get too off topic with types of weight that we lose, which will be another video, but really getting back to that gut health in terms of really looking at that big picture when we think, I don't like fruits and vegetables. Okay, at the end of the day, you're gonna have to figure it out. You have to be creative and get them in, because there will never be a scenario where your body doesn't need them. Think of these foods, fruits, veggies, that roughage as the workout for your GI tract. It's gonna digest food in a different way. It's gonna keep it strong, and it's gonna give your body different things that take different pathways through the body. So it's not about protein and carbs and calories and different fasts. That's not it. We don't want to do restrictive diets, because again, that kills the gut microbiome. Start thinking about the science of food and not thinking, what can I take out, but what can I add in that will actually add to the quality of my life. Some quick tips just to get that gut microbiome healthy. A good probiotic. Again, if you've worked with me, I always recommend kefir. It's my favorite. My kids drink it. My husband, we're all on it. That's a really great one. Activity. It doesn't have to be intense CrossFit workouts. Get out for 30 minutes a day and walk. Increasing fruits and vegetables. Again, these seem like basic things where it's like, oh yeah, dietitian's going to say that. Well, there's a reason we say that, because it actually makes your body work. So until you can kind of accept and rationalize that, hey, those will always be recommendations, don't use the scale as your motivator. Use the big picture of your body. We, as a human race, have been around for a very long time. We are made to adapt and overcome. Let your body do it. Give yourself the tools first before you run for medication. So if you're feeling anxiety, depression, again, that is out there. I completely get that. But first, before you run to a specialist for something else, make sure you're giving your body what it actually needs to work before you run to a medication. Because the more chemicals we dump in our body, it's kind of feeding into that cycle to where it's just going to be a higher threshold and more. Get back to the basics. Work on your gut health first. Give it a week or two to set in and work, and then see what the big picture looks like for you. But again, that is a very Cliff's Note brief version of the anxiety, depression relationship with our gut health. But really, guys, start getting back to basics, the basic stuff we're used to do, and then see if you actually need medication for that. But as always, let me know what you think. Drop those questions and comments below. This month, we're gonna be focusing on family nutrition, different topics, rapid weight loss, and dangers of that. But if there's any topics you want me to cover, always let me know. You can visit us at dietitiansofdallas.com or call or text 214-228-3149 with any questions about our services. Have a great day.